Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to talk through the carbon cycle and I'm going to be drawing a really simple, nice little sketch to show all of the stages. So with this simple sketch, this is what I recommend my students do, to kind of build it up stage by stage. So we're going to start with just a patch of grass here. So my drawings haven't got really any better from video to video, so you'll have to bear with me. We're just going to draw a random little bit of grass there. Might even draw a little flower in here. Put a nice little flower in there. Now, every time I try and draw this, it never works out. So instead, I think what I'm going to do is just insert the animal I wish to use. We're going to use this herbivore, the cow. I'm not able to draw that one. And that's all you need to start this whole thing off. So, when I ask my students when they think of carbon, where it's most abundant, the first thing that comes to mind for them is within CO2, within carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And that's our starting point. So let's try and link in these two organisms. Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is taken into the plant for photosynthesis. So that there is our first part of the carbon cycle. So we have photosynthesis, allowing carbon and the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to get into the plant. But we know that the plant respires and gives out CO2, so it's almost as if that can be put back. And equally, when the animal respires, when this herbivore respires, it will too release CO2 back into the atmosphere. So the second label that we can put in is one of respiration. So we've got CO2 being taken in for photosynthesis, given out for respiration. Now, one arrow that often most people miss on the carbon cycle is this one. So carbon within the plant in carbon-containing compounds can pass to the herbivore simply when it's being eaten. So feeding is one process on the carbon cycle not to neglect. So we've almost got a bit of a loop going on here with photosynthesis, respiration and feeding. Now, if the organisms, the plant and the animal, were to die, so we could draw, let's draw our plant like this, and our animal, well, I'm not even going to try and draw that cow upside down. Let's say they were to die, then we'll stick with the red. Then the carbon contained within them would pass into the ground, because decomposers, and we're talking about things like bacteria there, decomposers will bring about decay and release those organic compounds containing carbon into the ground. So we'd have decay by decomposers. Putting carbon into the ground. Now, interestingly, those decomposers also respire. Well, any organism would respire. So that's going to be a means by which we put carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. Now, under suitable conditions, so under suitable certain conditions, that carbon can get trapped in fossil fuels when they're forming. So fossilization within the ground, and I'm going to write this in blue, fossilization can lead to carbon being trapped within those fossil fuels. Now I need to just draw a few random other little bits. This is the essential part of the carbon cycle, and this is often what gets tested. But there are a few other additions that could be drawn in. So I'm just going to draw here. Now, you'll have to bear with me here. This is a very poor attempt at drawing a power station. Don't really know what I'm drawing, but you get the gist. So randomly, just on the side, I'm drawing a power station here. Now at the power station, those fossil fuels would be burnt to harness the energy. And when you burn fossil fuels, they release CO2 into the atmosphere. And that's by a process known as combustion. So we'll put that up here. So combustion. When you burn those fossil fuels, to release CO2 into the atmosphere. Again, another sort of example. Let's imagine here that we had a river flowing in this picture, leading to, I don't know, a big sea, or just some water. Carbon dioxide, and I'll draw this extra one in black, carbon dioxide can actually dissolve in the water. So there's one transfer of carbon. Now, interestingly, marine organisms can use carbon within the water to form their calcium carbonate shells. And those shells over time, as they start to solidify and those marine organisms die, they form limestone rock. And limestone contains this carbon, because limestone ultimately comprises of these calcium carbonate deposits from these marine organisms. Now, we sometimes use the term carbon sink. So a carbon sink in this example is sort of within the seabed, a sort of big underlying layer of rock containing carbon. But there's just a bonus sort of one for the carbon cycle. So we've got carbon dioxide dissolving into the rivers and into the water, but also this carbon sink, the carbon within the calcium carbonate or the rock at the seabed. And the final thing, which is perhaps the most random, and you don't often see this one, but we'll just put it in just for completeness sake. Volcanoes. So we're going to imagine there's a volcano in this picture. When a volcano erupts, that too releases CO2 into the atmosphere. So we'll just put eruption there. So volcanic eruption is a source of carbon dioxide, so completing this carbon cycle. Now, like I said, the essential part of the carbon cycle is in the centre with photosynthesis, respiration, feeding, and also decay by decomposers, putting carbon into the ground. But we do have the few other extras, so carbon dioxide dissolving in the water, combustion in the power station, and volcanic eruptions. Okay, hope that helps.